Kyle here from All Media Reviews. Here to do probably another video blog. I was gonna show some that music I talked about, although I haven't opened up the packages and can show one thing so Joyce used to chew gum periodically, and she toward the end of I don't know how many of the years, several years, she would buy this. It's like called Canals chewing gum at the Dollar Trees, which she loved. So I've actually started doing. I'm picking up a lot of like the cereal I had on. I've been having a little bit of cereal. I just don't have it with milk, of course, but people don't mind. I swore off chewing gum several years ago. I used to chew gum sometimes. I mean, I like gum. I used to chew gum sometimes to stay awake while I'd be like working or something like that, or even driving maybe. Then I concluded I'd switch to like hard candy, but I just thought like chewing gum basically ruined your jaws, but it's just like little guys. It's somewhat shortless. It looks really much different color, almost like a not like a stark purple, but this is more like grape purple. Oop, and I just dropped it. Well, I dropped two of the pieces. I guess I'm gonna have to throw the other two out. But whatever. In Joyce's memory, I don't know. I used to always get these and have to open them for her sometimes, or she would open them, but my aunts threw out a bunch. She had, I don't know, like 6 or 7 packets. Even when she was going through a lot of what she was going through toward the end, I mean, I don't know, toward the very end, she was chewing this gum at points. So I guess I could show, like, here's one thing I can show a little anecdote of. And when I keep on going up into the record room, which still is no shape to be able to. I think the last time I was in there, I think like there's more of those moved in there, clothes and stuff, makeup. This monkey's lunchbox that there should be another one that's dented. This was like I want to say 3 years ago, maybe 2022 or 2023 when these were issued. Um, she just dwelled on the negative. Of course, she's like, well, I'm never gonna get in one of these again. It got damaged, I think, from the cats. So yeah, it was actually 20. It had to be 2022. Maybe it was 23 when they were like playing or they were running around in there in the record room and some stuff like landed on it. But this one's not damaged. The other one, I think this was like a. I don't know if I got this. I don't remember. I just buy another one. I did, and she was like, well, it was a waste of money, but she tended to do that. Like she got something the first time. She was and then something happens to it, or she wasn't able to get it the first run. She just like completely just focused on, well, I didn't get it, and that sucks. Life sucks. But so we have another one, but the other one I think is dented. And I don't know. So I went to Barnes and Noble, because there was actually a Monkeys issue of Goldmine. Goldmine magazine. I don't know if we got a lot of issues, but did I tell this on the other video? I don't think I did. Um, I told some of the people, but looking for the Goldmine magazine. That's a Monkeys special. It's a special issue. It's not like a normal Goldmine. But Joyce used to reference Goldmine magazine and where she got. I'm not sure if Andrew Sandoval was in there. They would have like vinyl listings and stuff, I think, in there, but they had a whole special issue on the Monkeys that's coming out or came out, but they didn't have it. But I did see Prague magazine. Of course, I looked at it. And what's on the cover? Afraid of Sunlight from Marillion. I haven't I haven't looked at this. I mean, Prague magazine. There's more to Prague magazine. I could tell another. Here's the thing on Afraid of Sunlight, 1995. Well, I guess because it's the 30-year anniversary. Came with like a poster, maybe. Yeah, kind of something. I used to get Prague magazine. I think I talked about this in my rant video, but what don't I stopped buying it because it was pricey, and this is still. Although I'll say that considering the price of things, $15 still isn't so bad now. It feels like, but like 10 years ago or more, when this was more than 10, it was like whatever. The first, I knew Joyce. I met her in 2011. So 2011, 2012, 2013, maybe even 2014. She was at Barnes and Noble. She started at St. Kate's in 2012, but she worked at Barnes and Noble. God, it seems like it was a longer stretch of time before she was at St. Kate's. She worked at Barnes and Noble for um, at least a year, maybe 2 years worth. I thought to say she left in 2014. Maybe it was 13. It was either sometime late 13, maybe, or I think it was 14. So when I was with her, she was working at Barnes and Noble for, it was downtown Minneapolis, for the better part of 12, 13, the better part of at least almost 3 years. And these would come out, what, like, I think four a year, something like that. It was like the quarterly or something like that. So she would buy this and she could get it for her employee discount, which was half off. So I was paying her like 750 or whatever. I don't remember if I always paid her for it. I probably did most of the time, but we never combined our money. But we seemed sort of, I bought a lot of stuff for her, and she'd buy stuff for me occasionally too. But I haven't read through this though. I get around to reading it, but as a Marillion fan, I kind of need it. I still contend the whole thing with this is very British bias, and they've never really talked about Kevin Gilbert much, except the Italian one. So, um, but I bought this book also from recommended from a therapist I'm seeing. The first time I talked to her, which was like 2 weeks ago. I talked to her last week. I'm not talking to her this week, but next week. But I'm seeing I'm going to be talking to at least one, maybe more than one other therapist regularly, but it's called Healing After Loss by Martha W. Hickman. And I'm not much of a reader, but I'm going to try doing some reading. But this book, it's interesting. I haven't read through any of it yet, but just paging through some of it. There's like different experiences for one a day, so it's not like it's a lot of reading. You could read through it, but you could go through a year, and then if I started reading it like September 1st, go through the next year if I was dedicated, kind of like those calendar things that you take the sheet. In fact, the last time I saw one of those, Joyce used to have one. I want to say it was back at her mom's. Maybe it was on her desk at work at the History Center. I remember having those when I was a kid. I'd get like the baseball fact and stuff like that. But Joyce was using those. I want to say it was either at work or maybe it was at her mom's. I want to say it was at work, or yeah, it was probably at work. Probably not that. I should ask the people at the History Center about that. But anyway, I'm gonna try to read this. I have my aunt's book, Complicated Grief. The memory. This is her first book. She's written several other books, but about her late husband that passed away in 1998, also of cancer, I believe. But um, so, and then there's a couple other books that one of my aunts bought. Another aunt, different aunt, bought. That my cousin was recommending. I can remember. Again, that's kind of the ironic thing. Is like I've never been a great reader, but let's see if I can find it. Oh, did I get a message back? Maybe not. Hold on. Where is my message from my cousin? Sorry to do this like live. Oops, my bad. It's called "How to Carry What Can't Be Fixed: A Journal for Grief" by Megan Devine, and I guess it's pretty short. It's not a long, but she's experiencing loss. This cousin of mine too. Um, her husband passed away about like 2.5 years ago. So that's kind of what my a lot of my headspace, even though I haven't been reading these books yet, talking to people that are dealing with grief, and um, so I guess I can show some of the music and then just talk about some other stuff too. Unfortunately, I haven't opened any of this stuff. Why don't I just do this together? Why don't I just show this? Okay. So I did get the two Kevin Gilbert um estate number 11 and 12. There's two more of these coming that's before, and then we get the Shaming of the True. And still waiting on that, so I hope it's gonna be coming soon. The Shaming of the True multi-disc, and then the book and everything. But saw it live at the Rittenhouse Square. I don't know what year this was, 1995. This has been a shared, like, some people have bootlegs of this, but I haven't listened to it. I haven't even taken on the shrink wrap. I mean, I could try doing that right now, I guess. Um, I mean, it's just the last really 2 months. This came out, I want to say it was a little over a month ago. It was in June. I remember it was around my birthday, so it was when Joyce was already going through some of the complications, but it hadn't kind of become so dire. That's um, but it was after she got the phone call on that Friday the 13th, of course. I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. I didn't like been thinking about the whole superstition of Friday the 13th and triskaidekaphobia or whatever it is. This thing does not want to. That's the problem with these sometimes the way they shrink wrap these, and I have to use my scissors. Um, I got it. Okay. Live at Rittenhouse. Okay, it was August 23rd, 19. Wow, it was this. It was well, 30 years ago. Speaking of like the 30th anniversary of Bright Sunlight, 30 years ago Saturday. This Saturday. Maybe I need to listen to it. I'm going to be driving out to Chaska, which is like a 35-minute drive. Maybe I could put this on, I suppose. I just haven't been listening to much music, of course. But this is August 23rd, 1995, live at Rittenhouse. So, but again, this is a circulated bootleg. Has Miss Broadway on it and Ballad of Jenny Ledge. City of the Sun, Pretty, and a couple other more rare tracks. But the four thud band with Nick, Russ Parrish, and then Chris Golden played bass on one track. Kevin played the bass. So they were basically a trio. They had one person sit in for track 6 for T for one. So this whatever, the third to last or fourth to last, and then the other one that came out last in June. It's like last month. It was almost 2 months ago. Well, I think well, that's right, because most times when the Kevin estate, most times, almost always when Kevin's estate puts stuff up or it goes on to Pop Plus One, it's ready to ship. And unlike stuff like the Deer Hunter, um, let's see here. I can open this up. Music to use crayons by, um, and yeah, I haven't heard this. Is more like NRG period maybe. Demos of questionable content. So some other demos that were not included on, Call Me Kai and obviously the Thud multi-disc, or this is early much. This is like the NRG period, and there's some other stuff. The World Just Gets Smaller, 1992 TV mix, instrumental version of Childhood's End. You can see, but again, I haven't listened to it. If Your Love Has To, it might be a different title. Thank you, comma very much. Sequel, piano instrumental version of Best of Everything, Long Day's Life, a lot of TV mixes. So this is a hodgepodge. Jungle Zeppelin by Giraffe and Pit number 11. So this is archived series number 12. Uh, Four track dumps, 1980 to 82. So that he was like whatever 14, 15 in some of this stuff. The NRG stuff, some of it was Jason Hubbard, Childhood's End. So that song Childhood's End, which is on, I want to say it was on Nuts. It's like a much earlier version of it. So that version doesn't predate the Pink Floyd song, but it does predate the Marillion song, of course. But so I got that, but I haven't obviously spent any time with it for pretty obvious reasons I've talked about. So I did open this up. I did get the Chilean Alpine Adventure, Falling Up Presents on vinyl. I want to say, because I was talking about receiving it like as sometime in May. It came in like maybe the first week of June, so I was waiting to show it. Um, and then everything happened, of course, and it wasn't really in the cards to do it. So it was my album of the year. Although I have to admit, there's some lyrics and images in this record that I know everything feels like a premonition now. Like the Friday the 13th, was when she got the call from help, the doctor about the results of her scan. After hearing about the staff member of her, she was kind of happy about going off to do other things. And then we got the news. I don't know, but this Orange is kind of a cool record. I mean, it is my album of the year. It's my second favorite release of this decade of sorts, I guess, at this point. I don't know. I don't hope that everything that's happened to me in the last couple of months and with Joyce, some of this stuff is going to be scarred by it. I hope not. I don't know. I look at it more like the thing with the Act Two from, or the War Act Two from Family Crest that eventually I'll, you know, get past any associations. But yeah, because the fact is this came out the end of the year, and at that point, she already had it in her system. We just didn't know. It may not have metastasized, but it wasn't clear. That's the second part of it. Um, and it's got a bonus song called Fern and Madria. I think I listened to those on maybe the Bandcamp, maybe on Spotify too. But it's coming out on CD at some point, and then some people got it. I think I did get it on cassette. I forgot to bring that down too. So, uh, but a wonderful record. But unfortunately, everything that's happened, it's sort of it has its sort of limits how I can even appreciate it and everything I'm associating with music right now. But in fairness, like she existed before Star Wars. You know, this came out and I'd heard it long before everything kind of went south. So the last item to show here is I can open this up. The music on vinyl that I paid a pretty penny for the 10th anniversary of um everything's kind of masterpiece record. Which some of this I kind of been thinking about too recently. Get to Heaven. It's a reissue. The first pressing would probably sell for a pretty penny on eBay and stuff, but yeah, I got my Spindrift. I don't know. I want my lime mint Spindrift. Um, anyway, Get to Heaven from 2015. I always think of, because there's a song called Distant Past. I always think of nostalgia when I hear that. I want to go back in time right now, especially with the going on. I would give anything to go back in time, um, but Yellow, thick pressing. This is their best record. The most universally liked. Some people like some of their records more. Everything, but the British sort of math pop, quirky math pop rock, proggy art rock band. One of the sort of important bands in empire, you could say, of the 2010s, especially. Um, it's a cool book. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't cheap, but it was worth getting. The only thing I'll say about this, when I got this record, when I heard this record, it was like those first six tracks are just track after track that really works. Regret, Spring, Sun, Winter Dread, The Wheel. I know the songs after because they have this habit of putting out these albums that had so many extra like so many tracks that there'd be like 12, 13, 14 songs, and at some point by the end it kind of would sometimes run out of steam. But this one still overall was their best. It was like a breakthrough because the previous record, Arc, I was not that into. I'm still not that into. The debut album I like a lot, even though you can't understand half what the singer's saying. Man Alive, but this is like a sort of an orange on the second disc. Orange is kind of reddish orange, but music on vinyl, thick pressing. Um, and I have an original CD that I had the guys sign when I saw them in 2015 with the Joy Formidable, it was, I believe, yeah, at First Avenue. I thought that was actually a better performance than the show I saw a few years ago at Varsity. But so I was just kind of happy to be able to see them on that tour. I don't, hopefully they'll be able to still tour again. British acts, especially, it's sort of unclear, especially with like the government and tariffs and all this stuff that's been making things more difficult. But so I did get I think this has extra tracks too. To the Blade, to the Bone. The CD, the 10th anniversary CD. Yeah, yeah, it has 9 bonus tracks and B sides. Yeah, so this may be some work to open. This video is gonna be probably half an hour like my last one. That's all I'm pretty much doing. Yeah, it's probably be too much to open. Um, I'll hold off on that. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, just I'm sad about what happened to the Brett Hines from Mastodon. It's just, um, I don't know. I feel like, even with Joyce's music, it's it's sort of weird, it's surreal, and it's hard to sort of fathom in some ways. Um, I do want to do a, by the way, I want to do a slideshow. I forgot to, I'm kind of going all over the place a bit, but um, I want to do a slideshow. The slideshow that was shown at the wake and at the funeral itself. For some people, I'm gonna try to convert that. We won't take as much time and work so people could see. It took me like 6 hours to weed through a lot of photos, and um, a lot of people didn't get to see it. So try to put that up at some point. I don't know when. Hopefully sooner than later. It could be in the next week or two. It could be wouldn't be till October. I don't know. Hopefully it'll be sooner than later. But no, I was just it was just hitting me about like Joyce didn't like that, but it doesn't matter because she's not here anymore. It's just you know experiencing the sort of isolation and like I think I talked about this. I'm gonna spit this gum out. I think she usually would only have the gum in for a little while, anyways. But she'd always be asking me for Kleenex for her gum. I need Kleenex because I get postnasal drip, of course. But um, not having her, and then just the experience of being, the grieving, and then the sort of companionship. Um, that's the thing. I mean, among other things, one of the biggest things I'm kind of trying to cope with and deal with. I was listening to scratch in the box again, Kaja. Trying to I mean, some of it is this like surreal stuff that like Brent Hines dies and um other people are getting sick and other people are passing away. Um what are you doing, Kasha? No, you're destroying the box, one of those cardboard grocery boxes. Um I'm struggling with like what am I facing, and it's supposed to one day at a time, and I have to plan for some of the stuff to see some of these doctors and um therapists and stuff like that anyway, and just plan the stuff. We're gonna do a celebration of life party and go to the state fair. I'm gonna go to Gabriel Iglesias, Fluffy. Um, long story short, I talked about it on Facebook, but she was bugging me. She wanted to go see him a couple of years ago, and the weather was gonna be bad, so we didn't go. She always like gave me the third degree about that. And she's like, "We're going this year. We have to go. You have no choice. We have to go this year." And then I was asking her. She said she was going to buy tickets, and I was asking her if she bought the tickets because I think the tickets probably went on sale. He's going to be here in a couple of weeks at Treasure Island. He's doing like he does like 3 nights there and the 3 nights like up in Duluth or something. 2 or 3 nights, but I'm going with some of her friends, but she never bought them. Like I don't believe she said she was going to, but I think that was maybe like in March or April. And I asked her, it's like, no, I haven't gotten around to it. But so I found a ticket one row ahead of her friends because they bought their tickets a while ago. So Bernetta and Belinda. But so I'm gonna go do that. The Main Animate Festival's coming up in a few weeks. I need to plan to go to that, which day? Probably Thursday too. Um, and I'm gonna be going to maybe a Loons soccer game with, not sure who with, but one of Joyce's friends has tickets that he can't use. So it's a soccer fan, but no, just being single, being thrown into this like I was single, in high school. I feel like I talked about this in another video. Yeah, I did. Like in high school, yeah, I did. But it's they were talking about, I was listening to that on NPR and something else talking about people's social abilities, younger people, everyone just is on their phones and stuff. And then compatibility with people, not just romantic, but could be romantic. And Joyce and I weren't identical, but in that sense, I think we worked because we had a lot of similar values, not absolutely identical, but pretty close. Both like social and political. And just values, somewhat with family, but I mean, she obviously came from a different background of mine. She's obviously different ethnicity, but that's probably one reason why we worked. We also met in person. We didn't meet through some website or app or whatever algorithm, and always felt more organic. Felt like was what we were supposed to. And we were came from an age we grew up in the '80s, so we were kids of the '80s, '70s, and '80s, and then '90s high school. It felt like it would make more sense for we would meet more the old fashioned way per se of previous generations. So that's why I was always really happy I did, even though I was on like OK Cupid and tried doing that and met some women that way, but none of them really ever was really extensive. What happened. So I don't know. I think my feeling is that if I ever do meet someone, I hope it is in a similar fashion rather than using these different sites or a service too. But it's weird. Just I need to feel like I'm grieving her and everything about her, not having her there. It's just everything with food and even taking care of the cats to some degree, doing this all by myself. But I mean, help with the help of some family members in fairness, um, but I feel like I would like companionship, and my companionship has been um, what am I gonna call him? I can't call her again. Uh, Slushy, plushy, um, or someone on the phone. I have different people I'm going to be talking to, or getting together with people like, you know, it's just weird. Um, it's I don't know, and it's just so the future of how long it's going to be like this. I'm throwing back into that mentality before I met her. But it's almost like one of those things where if you haven't experienced, it's that Dredge quote actually, very similar to that. You can't understand it until you've actually been through it. If you've never been in love, you've never been in a long-term relationship, especially, um, and then like being by yourself, being a bachelor, or in this my case, bachelor slash widower. I don't know if you call me. I don't know if it's called a bachelor when you have someone you're married to that dies. It's just widow and widower. Um, it's if you don't have that experience of actually being in love and having someone you love, then you don't know. It's not so dramatic to sort of be by yourself. And I have to admit, there were points with Joyce that um, I thought I asked myself why am I with this person again? To some degree, because I felt like the things that I sometimes some of her sort of animated behavior at points or just frustrations with didn't happen very often, but occasionally we had spells, where we had, every couple has arguments and conflicts and just frustrations with the other. Um, and it always felt so like sort of secondary in the grand scheme of things, but we did. And I admit that I would go into silent treatment, and I felt looking back at it pretty bad about that. But it's like that whole thing about admitting you're wrong, or admitting apologizing can be hard sometimes. But I did, but I did sometimes not enough. Maybe not as much as I wish I. That's the guilt, probably undeserved guilt. Um, but no, I mean that's the thing. I met someone the other day who was telling about. It was at the grocery store. As an employee there, this woman. She was 74 years old, something like that. She was in her 70s, and I told her about Joyce, and she's like, "You're kind of young to be a widow, a widower, and widow is female, I believe. Widowers, I don't know. Like widow, the widow is more than a common word. Um, Man, woman, you she said that her I said, yeah, whatever. It happened really suddenly. She's like, I'm actually she said, I'm a widow myself. I've been a widow since I was 24. So it was like 40 to 50 years. said her husband died in some drowning accident. She said she had two kids or something after um, after he passed away with someone else, or I don't know. I was going to talk to her more, but then she seemed to not really want to go into it, and she was just working. So I may go if I see her. If I go back to it was at the grocery store out in Egan. If I see her again, maybe I'll just say hello and maybe at some point talk to her. But am I going to be in that situation? I would guess not, but it's so complicated with so I have like why am I with I asked myself point why am I with Joyce because for various reasons it wasn't just because we got in a conflict it was just sort of like you know she doesn't go to concerts with me I always have to go by myself anyways I thought before I met her I'd find someone as a concert buddy or something I go to her the flip side of that was I did go to most of her concerts when we were together not 100% but most of them um and so that part did happen but not my own personal love the music I love but um, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. But it's more just we I cared for her, we cared for each other. So, um, but it just kind of felt like, well, that was one thing. Just some of the frustrations with I don't know, just driving her around, chauffeuring her around to different stores sometimes got to be a bit much. And like, are we gonna eat? Or are we gonna go shop? Um, that actually hit me a couple days ago, and I called the therapy service because it just kind of hit me like I'm never going to shop with her again. Not that I love the actual shopping necessarily. Sometimes I would just be waiting for her to finish and stuff, but something we did, I don't know how many times I just since COVID, like since we bought this house, it was just at Target alone, we probably went 2,000 times. I mean, approximately. Sometimes it would just be me going. Rarely, occasionally, she'd go on her own, and I was at home or something. But that was more like Dollar Tree. But that's hard to fathom, like Walmart, and I'm gonna write on the Carrying Bridge about Walmart probably pretty soon. But no, it's just daunting. But I don't know. And the thing is, if I were looking for someone, and should I even be thinking about looking for someone? And it naturally just, there's attractive women out there, and I just see them. I'm going for walks or going to the store or just, encountering them, and I can't not think about that still. But then Joyce is still lingering in my brain. Um, but I think I'm craving the companionship rather than just like a full-on romantic relationship. I'm just craving someone you know, to hang out with for more extended amounts of time that I don't know. I maybe some of it's just having people over, but I can't expect that. And maybe some of it is if it's someone I like being around. Just it's not again maybe platonic, but someone I like just being around could be could be a guy. Just having them here, but I can't expect that because they're not going to come live here, like a roommate or something like that, or like a I don't know. Even just being in public in general. But I don't know. At some point, the switch may kind of go off in my brain and be like, "This is just the way it is," and it'll be kind of like the way, at least somewhat similar, before I met her. And while I dated some people here and there was more of the duration of those whatever 15. It was but you could say it was about 15 years. It seems like it would have been longer than that, where I was mostly just by myself or with a friend or something like that. Just kind of get used to. I had my TV shows and like Psych was doing a little clip marathon today on YouTube. That was like refreshing, although it was a little bit hard because a lot of it Joyce liked, although Joyce didn't come on to Psych until later, and she never saw every episode. So there was like a quote about I forget what it was. I'm 1/4 Jamaican. And when Gus is trying to eat some of the Indian food, he says, "Please, I'm 1/4 Jamaican." And then Sean goes to the same thing. I don't think because that was season 4. Joyce, I'm not sure if Joyce even ever saw that episode, which is a shame. She might have, but um, that's another shame. It's like just all this stuff. Like I went to this restaurant, Burgers and Bottles tonight that I wanted to go to, but I think she would, and they have pretty good fries, French fries. I'm gonna be making a laundry list of things that she never got to try, or have or do that she probably would have liked, but it's hard to fathom that she only existed till was July 22nd, 2025. So it's like July 22nd, 2025, all the way back till you know, May 4th, 1975. That window of time, it's like, well, that stuff happened at that window of time, but now after that, it's like what could have been. It's a little bit like the Kevin Gilbert thing, if it what could have been, and I don't know. It's gonna be, hopefully, it will be something I'll get through with help of therapy and talking to other people. But I've talked to, it feels like time's moving so slow. It's been 4 weeks. It hasn't even been quite a month yet. It's been over four. Well, it will actually will be a month from tomorrow. Will be the one, and she, this is where she ended her life, right in this room. It's kind of weird to think of that, but the last week of her last yeah, last couple weeks of her life were very different anyways. I mean, I feel like kind of things ended around the time of around that time of like maybe a little bit after Friday the 13th. It was, around my birthday, a little bit before, a little bit after, where her physical limitations, ability to talk had been reduced. She still was able to do it, but that's kind of when things really kind of ended. Even though I don't know if like ultimately I'll remember this and remember like when certain things happened toward the end. Like, was it, when did she talk about that fluffy thing? Was that in April or May maybe? I don't know. Over time, it's going to become more gray. That's kind of why I need to write some of this stuff down. But I do have her cell phone. We're keeping her cell phone for now. But I don't know. This channel, unfortunately, is going to transition into basically like a memorial for Joyce and my own therapy until things change. I mean, again, I want to do that. It's going to be obviously almost entirely Joyce related. Show her records, but at some point, I have visions to do that podcast, especially, and maybe get back to showing the CD A to Z and trying to finish that out at some point. It's weird how when I was with her and with YouTube, I always had to sort of find the time to make the videos, and now that she's not here, I have a wealth of times in some ways. I do, but I don't. But I don't feel like making videos because just maybe ultimately will. Although who knows? Because of the social things I'm looking to do with the Jewish Community Center, doing walks. I've done walks the last couple of days, talking to some other people. Some of my time may be compromised, but at the same time, it probably won't be as difficult to do it at in the evening. It depends if people are going to come over. I wish I could have more appointments for people to come over. Some people will eventually come over besides the sort of regulars that have my family members. But um, one of my neighbors though that lost her husband is there's some things going on with her unfortunately right now too. On but I don't know. I feel it's just all this stuff keeps on coming up. One of my coworkers moved to Texas that I knew for a long time. It's just weird. I don't know why a lot of this stuff keeps on coming up. If it's just pure coincidence or something's changed. It's like, I mean, if I were not to wake up tomorrow at this point, I want to be around. There's a lot of things I want to do, but at the same time, I think I've fallen into that sort of careless mentality to some degree that, to know that at the point that I'm gone, I would want to be back with Joyce again at a minimum. It gives me a little bit of peace of mind and some solace. But my aunt said, when she goes, she's going to be back with her husband, and I got to believe that. Now, who knows if something does happen between me and someone else? It's going to be a little divided. I feel like half of myself died with Joyce, the other half is still here, but this other person will want to have my heart. That kind of metaphor, that poetic speak per se, like Shakespearean. Um, I don't want to shortchange them, but the thing is, any relationship I do start, given I'm a widower, the person would have to ultimately, understand that. They'd have to understand that from the get go, and they'd have to ultimately understand that. And that could be something where people get into relationships with someone who did lose their spouse or their significant other. And at first, it's like it's fine. They're being empathic and trying to basically comfort them, and it's something they find appealing about the sensitivity and everything about that person. And then ultimately, it gets to be too much. It could end the relationship. So, I mean, that's another sort of crutch. But I feel like I've basically acquired a new disease. Like I have diabetes, I get these other medical problems, but I feel like loneliness, I wouldn't call it depression exactly to some degree, but loneliness and isolation and the sort of mental part of that is a disease of a condition, if not a disease, I've acquired. And one day at a time, but therapy and everything is hopefully going to be the medicine, the treatment for it. And I could be sitting here, staying here, I could be looking here in, you know, 6 months and at least feeling a little more at peace with it and being able to deal with it. Um, but the grief triggers and listening to Casey Kasem and even in the I'm hearing songs. I'm not getting grief. I'm not going into tears, but um, songs like in the stores and stuff. Like even at the restaurant I had dinner tonight, they played "What Fits in the Tantrums." Although it might have been a song that Joyce had kind of moved on from Fits in the Tantrum to some degree, but still the music and a band that I still associate with her. Um, so that's kind of my video blog showing some catch up on some of this stuff. And before I go to bed, maybe I'll try to page through one or more of these. I guess what I'll do, maybe in that other book that my cousin talked about, and then there's another book that one of Joyce's friends was recommending. Maybe doing some book reviews. I mean, I'd like to start reading some of the stuff from like Brian K. Vaughan's Paper Girls. I've never read that whole thing. I got the whole thing as an anthology. But and like Snow Crash. If I reading is not my strong suit, but if I do reading, it would be something to maybe review on the channel as well. But I hope the reading, just like the writing and making these videos, can give me some level of therapy and release. And God bless ASMR videos. I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for those. Something that Joyce actually did more of than I did, and then I kind of discovered them while she was around to some degree, but I'm getting more into them. But they're very soothing, calming at points, with different sensations and that kind of thing. I mean, it's bordering on sort of what's the word? It's stimulating. The word is the best thing is it stimulates in multiple ways, and it also kind of does let me sort of escape and not feel so drained and sort of like a victim. I feel like I am a victim, and I feel like I'm guilty, but I'm a victim in this whole situation. But maybe the victimization part and the guilt kind of goes away because I can feel just like the whole fetal position, like Merlin's brave, like I get, just people get. So, but that's it for my sort of ramble fest for tonight. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.